The four last things: death, judgment, hell, and heaven. By Father Martin von Cochem, OSFC. Remember thy last end, and thou shalt never sin. Part 1. On Death. Chapter 5. On the Judgment. Above and beyond all that we have hitherto considered as contributing to make death terrible to us, is the thought that we must stand before the judgment seat of God, and give an account of all we have done and left undone. How awful this judgment is, we learn from these words of St. Paul. It is a fearful thing to fall into the hands of the living God. For if it is very alarming even to fall into the hands of an angry man, how much more terrible will it be to fall into the hands of an omnipotent God? And holy Job exclaims, "What shall I do if God arise to judge me? What am I that I should answer him? I cannot answer him 1 for 1,000. First, I dread the moment when my soul has to leave my body. Secondly, the moment when I must stand before the tribunal of God. Thirdly, the moment when sentence is passed upon me. No one can fail to concur in the saying of this saintly man, for indeed, beside the general judgment, there is nothing so much to be apprehended as these 3 things. All good and holy men have feared them, all do fear them. Those who do not fear them prove that they know very little about them or have meditated scarcely at all upon them. For the benefit of one who may be so unenlightened, I will give a brief instruction on the subject. Consider, first of all, what a strange new sensation it will be for thy soul when she finds herself separated from the body in an unknown world. Hitherto she has known no existence apart from the body. Now she is suddenly separated from it. Hitherto she was in time. Now she has passed into eternity. Now for the first time her eyes are opened, and she sees clearly what eternity is, what sin is, what virtue is, how infinite is the being of the Deity, and how wondrous is her own nature. All this will appear so marvelous to her that she will be almost petrified with astonishment. After the first instant of wonder, she will be conducted before the tribunal of God, that she may give an account of all her actions, and the terror that will then seize upon the unhappy soul surpasses our powers of conception. No wonder the hapless sinner shrinks from appearing before a tribunal where he will be convicted of all his misdeeds and severely punished for them. Would he not rather be thrown into a dark dungeon and be fed on bread and water than have to stand before this judgment seat and be put to open shame? If it is so hateful to a criminal to be brought before an earthly magistrate, well may the poor soul quake with fear when she is introduced into the presence of God, the strict and omniscient judge, and required to give the most accurate account of all the thoughts, words, deeds, and omissions of her past life. Holy Job acknowledges this when he says, "Who will grant me this, that thou mayst protect me in hell and hide me till thy wrath pass?" Observe that even the patient Job would rather lie in a darksome pit and be concealed in a gloomy, somber cave than appear before the countenance of an angry God. There are 6 things which strike terror into the soul when she is summoned to the particular judgment. First, the soul fears because she knows her judge to be omniscient, that nothing can be concealed from him, nor can he be in any way deceived. Second, because her judge is omnipotent, nothing can withstand him, and no one can escape from him. Third, because her judge is not merely the most just, but the most strict of judges, to whom sin is so hateful that he will not allow the slightest transgression to pass unpunished. Fourth, because the soul knows that God is not her judge alone, but also her accuser, she has provoked him to anger, she has offended against him, and he will defend his honor and avenge every insult offered to it. Fifth, because the soul is aware that the sentence once uttered is irrevocable, there is no appeal for her to a higher court. It is useless for her to complain of the sentence. It cannot be reversed, and whether adverse or favorable, she must needs accept it. Sixth, the most powerful reason of all why the soul fears to appear before the judgment seat is because she knows not what the sentence of the judge will be. She has far more cause to fear than to hope, and all thought of help is now over. Forever, forever lost, forever, forever damned. These 6 points fill the soul with such unspeakable anguish and terror that were she mortal instead of immortal, she would be willing to die the most cruel and violent death as a means of escape. Consider furthermore in what form thou wilt appear before thy judge, and how thou wilt be put to confusion on account of thy sins. If a man in punishment of his evil deeds were sentenced to be stripped to the skin in presence of a whole multitude, how greatly ashamed he would feel. But if some loathsome and disgusting sore upon his body were thus disclosed to sight, he would be still more ashamed. Thus will it be with thee when thou standest before thy judge in the presence of many hosts of angels. Not merely will all thy wrongdoings, thy thoughts, words, and works be revealed, but all thy evil propensities will be made manifest to thee, and thou wilt be put to terrible shame because of them. Thou canst not deny that these evil proclivities cling to thee. For art thou not given to anger, impatience, revenge, hatred, envy, pride, vanity, sensuality, sloth, greediness, self-love, avarice, worldliness, and all malice? These and other bad tendencies cleave to thy soul, and disfigure it so frightfully that after death thou wilt be alarmed at the sight of thy own soul, and heartily ashamed of all the stains upon it. Next, consider in what manner thy holy judge will receive thee, when thou appearest before him not merely laden with a countless multitude of sins, but in a state of indescribable impurity. Thou wilt stand before him in the greatest confusion, not knowing which way to look. Beneath thy feet hell lies, above thee is the angry countenance of thy judge. Beside thee thou seest the demons who are there to accuse thee. In thy own interior thou beholdest all thy sins and misdeeds. It is impossible to hide thyself, and yet this exposure is intolerable. What is it that no one knows? His friend asked, and the Spirit answered, No one knows how strict are the judgments of God, and how severe his chastisements. These things being so, what does it behoove us to do, in order not to fall into the hands of a wrathful judge? I can give thee no better counsel than this: repent of thy sins, make a sincere confession, amend thy ways, and begin to think seriously about thy eternal salvation. Whilst thou art still in good health, think sometimes of death, and prepare thyself for it. Do not postpone this until old age comes upon thee, or a mortal sickness overtakes thee. There is no greater, no more important art upon earth than the art of dying a good death. Upon this thy whole eternity depends, an eternity of surpassing felicity or of unutterable torment. Only one trial is accorded thee. If thou dost not stand this one trial, all is lost, an eternity of misery is before thee. And if thou hast not learned this all-important art in thy lifetime, when thou art well and strong, how canst thou practice it to thy eternal gain when upon thy deathbed? It will be utterly impossible for thee to do so unless God works a miracle of mercy on thy behalf. Thou canst not reckon upon this. God has not promised it, nor hast thou deserved so great a favor. Therefore let me entreat thee to follow my friendly counsel, and prepare thyself frequently for death whilst in full health and strength. For this is the only means whereby thou mayst hope to become proficient in the art of dying well, and pass successfully through the one trial that awaits thee, by which thy eternal destiny will be determined,